Hello, this is Cole Armitage broadcasting for the Trent Media Society Show. I'm joined here with two of my good friends today who I will let introduce themselves.
My name's Dustin.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Nathaniel. How you guys doing today?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Good. It's kind of a little chilly out there, but it's great. I'm excited to have a great show with you guys, and for all you guys listening out there, we're going to have some great material, so I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started, but before I do that, I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping issues. Again, we are the Trent Media Society, and we are on Facebook and Twitter, and you can follow us there. We'll be also doing a holiday event that we'd like to promote. It's on December the 12th at the Trend, and if you're interested in media or you're a media enthusiast like we are, feel free to join us. We'll have some free snacks, and we'd love to talk to you.
Can't go wrong with free snacks.
No, absolutely not. So our topic today that we're going to talk about is the blurring of the lines between news and advertising. So a couple weeks ago, and this was sort of my inspiration for talking about this subject, I was watching one of the new episodes of South Park, which for some reason seems to be filled with a lot of relevant academic ideas that I tend to talk about for whatever reason. And
Yeah,
that seems
how often has Liam played South Park in class for us?
Yeah, which is odd when you think about it, but there's something very right about it. The most recent episode that we watched was entitled Sponsored Content, and it follows one of the kids, Jimmy, in his pursuit to sort of find the dividing line between news and advertising online. I'm going to quickly play a short clip from that episode for you, and I'd like you to just sort of take a minute and listen if you have not seen this episode already.
Wow, this is...
Forewarning, there is a very, very small amount of profanity in this clip. Just one word. It is the BS word. If you don't like it, then, don't listen.
so great. Have you ever read the elementary school newspaper, Linda? There's no ads, no sponsored content, no links to click on. Just news stories about what's happening. Did you know that the police in Shitipa Town beat up homeless to clear them out? Do you know how long it's been since I was able to just sit back and read the news? I got so used to getting news off the internet, but I feel like I'm always trying to chase the news somehow. It's like I'm in a black void, trying to reach the news story. But then the next thing I know, I'm reading an ad for Geico. So I click out of that and try to read the news story, but it's not a news story. It's a slideshow, and I'm looking at the worst celebrity plastic surgery jobs ever. So of course I want to see the next slide of plastic surgery gone wrong, so I hit the arrow. But then the arrow wasn't the arrow for the next slide, it was to take me for an ad for face cream. I wanted to get a news story, but I'm reading about face cream, and I try to click out of it, but the ad is following me. It's following me all over the screen. No! So I click on the close button, but it wasn't a close button, it was another slideshow. And I just want to know what's happening in the Middle East, but instead, I'm looking at the top 10 scariest movies of all time. And that's not the arrow for the next slide, it's for another ad. But this is just news, and I don't get lost in all the bullshit. Linda?
I happen to really love that clip because I think it just sort of expresses something we're all feeling when we're sort of trapped in this little bubble online where we're finding ourselves reading a bunch of, well, as he said, bullshit.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you guys, I mean, when I saw the clip, I laughed because, that really has a lot to do with our, Arthur, the local newspaper that we have here where students kind of contribute along with Trent Radio. It's commercial free radio. It's local content where, news and advertising other than, kind of local news that broadcasters like ourselves are promoting. So, they both kind of relate.
Wait, this is free? I was told I was getting a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit with this, but I think one of the reasons for the fact that the content that we produce locally is of such a high quality, or at least we seem to all think it is because it's actually done for free. It's done by people who are just sort of
fans,
interested in getting the story out there. Now I know there can be some paid positions within, but generally speaking, our interest is just in getting the story out there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, and as we heard in the clip, there's no intrusion of, ads or any other sort of external promotion that would kind of distract the either listener or reader, depending on if you're listening to Trent Radio or, the Arthur, you're reading the Arthur down on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to just sort of mention is that there seems to be some sort of thought that it has something to do with the medium specifically. But I do think it's important to make the divide between whether the content needs to be paid for or not. And I think that might be a more important distinction than, whether we're reading a newspaper, listening to the radio, or online. So before I go further, there is sort of a lot of terminology associated with, with sponsored content. And for the purposes of this conversation, I want to just sort of normalize everything under that term, sponsored content. A lot of
Absolutely.
the time, there's a distinction between native advertising, sponsored content. But for the purposes of this, I think we're going to be talking about anything that sort of disguises itself as the actual content, but is in fact advertising that's paid for. So I'm just going to ask you guys a general question, and I'll give you both a chance to answer it. So in that clip, one of the characters' dads was sort of, caught by this feeling that that you would continually run into the stuff that you're not looking for accidentally because it's disguised as the stuff you are looking for online. Is that an experience that you guys can relate to?
Oh, all the time for me anyway. Every time looking at one of those next buttons, you never know which is for the next slide and which is going to bring you to the next advertisement that you just don't want.
Mm-hmm. And so for you, it's sort of characterized by a lot of confusion and a lot of mistrust, it seems.
I think, just to add on to what Dustin's saying, and then I'll let him continue, is I find myself often in those kind of scenarios when I'm either doing homework or I'm doing something that I don't really want to be, I'm kind of either procrastinating on it, or it's something that I'm kind of putting off, and I'm on a web browser and I'm getting distracted by external links that take me to different kind of directions on the web that I don't really want to be going in. I mean, I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, and then I get distracted by things on the side, or I find myself eventually ending up on Facebook, which ends up somewhere else, or kind of being distracted by external links that I shouldn't be on.
So for you, it's a distraction even when you're not specifically looking for that content.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And I think what the real issue here is when the advertising is actually disguised as the content you're looking for. So, in the clip he mentions, looking for news in the Middle East, and then you're, reading something about face cream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you think you are about to read more news, and those lines can be very difficult to place. So they're also referred to occasionally as advertorials, so sort of a combination of the terms advertisement and editorials. And they've certainly had a presence in both television and radio broadcasting, as well as newspapers and magazines. So just as a couple examples, I believe this was a couple of years ago in one of our courses where there was a television news report that had something to do about, I believe it was a shoe that was better for your feet. And it was sort of paired with, I believe, a war that was going on at the same time. And you sort of have this insane juxtaposition between, this intensely serious news compared with, oh, here are some shoes that will, help your feet be more comfortable and you should buy them. Mm-hmm. And
that's almost like patriotism, right? Like, buy these shoes and help our troops. Right?
Maybe. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know if I made that connection either, but I could definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
They're definitely, yeah. No, I know what you mean. That's an interesting idea.
Anyway, so my question is, specifically right now, we're talking about, the phenomenon of sponsored content online. Is there anything specific about the internet, as opposed to newspapers, magazines, television, and radio, that you think there's anything unique about the way that sponsored content works on that medium.
I think totally. With a newspaper, you have to read what's in front of you. With a magazine, you have to read what's in front of you.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, take the internet, you're digitizing, the process where you have the internet's, environment of limitless information.
Yeah, everything links to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you were to take, sites such as Reddit, where they're totally dedicated to, you can go to the subreddit for, world news or U.S. politics or whatever, it's even still more, I would say, not necessarily detailed, but just more fruitful in its, content that you can look at. Whereas a newspaper, you only maybe would have like one of those, posts that would be, in world news, or one of those posts that would be in, sports or whatever. So you're kind of, with a newspaper, you're kind of subject to those particular, stories that are posted, considering it's not clickable.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you bring up something like Reddit specifically, where we see sort of a huge manifestation of the sort of prosumer. Is that the word that they use? Producer/consumer. When sort of the postmodern phenomenon where people who are consumers can also be producers. And in Reddit, we tend to see that applied to news as well, where, if I don't want to get the news from, CBC, if I don't want to get the news from CNN, I can get the news from Reddit, and just from some person who is there, who is reporting on their own. And so it seems to me like it is the case that because people are also producers online, that it becomes very easy to avoid news outlets that do pay for advertising.
Right. I see what you're saying. But I mean, then again, Reddit or even, YouTube for that matter, they're both sites where, they're easy to go off on those tangents, even if it's not really, something that you want to be doing. There's just so much content that you never know where you're going to end up. Even, even the ads on the side of Reddit or, different subreddits to go to, it's all sort of forms of advertising to kind of promote the site or to explore its content.
Yeah, see, and I was thinking of BuzzFeed also. So, they have news stories on that site as well. And then off to the side, it's like top 10 cat photos.
And it seems to me like it's the general consensus that BuzzFeed is perhaps the absolute king of sponsored content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
With those top 9 ways that you can clean your house better, sponsored by Swiffer. So I think they're
top
definitely
10 Valentine's Day gifts sponsored by Lindor.
Exactly. So BuzzFeed, we're definitely looking at you when we're talking about this. Okay, so it seems to be the case that because things like the banner ads that you're gonna sort of see on any web page along the sidebar as well. It seems to be the case that those ads are extremely ineffective.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of put into question, like, how many people are actually clicking on a banner,
and it's
whether it be by accident or even I would assume more by accident than anything. I mean, they're so in the way and they're so captivating in a lot of the ways. They just kind of flicker, or they do certain they have those images, whether they be sexually oriented or oriented to a particular interest that you may have. It's just something that you just wonder, like, why how come who even clicks on those? You know what I mean?
I would think that if you're a company creating a banner ad, you're almost not expecting people to click on it. It's really sort of
just embedded in like you just see it, and then that could just the visual kind of relation to the viewer, not necessarily clicking on it, but relating it to other relating it to other like just with the company that anytime they see it on online, or they they're talking to other people. It's more of a word of mouth type deal, rather than clicking on it per se.
Yeah, I think also like the targeted ads, the targeted banner ads are to blame also. I know I just started a new job and I was on their website, and next thing I know, every other website I go to, I see their banner.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me like the banner ad is almost more of an online billboard.
Yeah,
you're not really
absolutely.
Almost asked to interact with it. You're just sort of asked to see it. But it does seem to be the case that companies still rely on the number of clicks as a measure of success for their advertisements. And when you're looking at the banner ads, you've essentially got 0, right? Because I mean, have you ever clicked ever on a banner ad? I don't think I have.
Not on purpose, anyway.
No, not personally, but it's definitely an effective method of getting a company's name out, or as you said, a billboard. And you're driving. I'm from Toronto personally, so when I'm driving downtown, I see banners all the time. And you see these kind of reoccurring images, and then you have that in the back of your mind, and then who knows where. That's the whole effect of advertising. So,
so you would say that the banner advertisements online, you think that they are effective?
I would say they're not. I would say that they're not effective in the way that they're intended to be effective.
In the way that they're measured.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
when we talk, we're talking about banner ads now, and we're talking about the idea of the clickable banner ad. Yeah. I mean, in that sense of actually clicking on a banner ad, I don't think that they are kind of as successful, and that's how the company gets its advertising in that way. It's not as effective that way, but it's more effective in the sense of just seeing it as a billboard, as you stated. Not in the sense of the clickable manner, but in the sense of the the visual connection manner. Later during the day when you come in contact with it again, and it's just kind of like a regurgitation of that that visual.
It's also like when somebody clicks it, how many other people have actually looked at that ad also? Right. So it becomes the whole thing of...
just to kind of add on, I work at a company, or I work during the summer at a company called Click, where we do pharmaceutical advertising, digital advertising within the city. Okay. And a lot of what I've been working on with them over the past 2 summers has been like a lot of their banners and ads in that kind of sense. And you can actually measure a lot of times I was dealing with the statistics of not really the amount of times the ad has been clicked on, but necessarily the amount of times that the person has viewed that page. So the clicks, the statistics are not solely measured in the clicks, but also just in the views on the page, because the company realizes that it's still an effective way of getting their name across, or getting pharmaceuticals across, especially in the States, because that we have. So no one can see my quotes over the over the mic, but so-called free healthcare. Yes. So that just to kind of weigh in on that, I do have some personal experience with that, and that is how it is measured as well.
So a little bit of personal experience from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like it is a billboard exactly.
We may potentially disagree on the effectiveness of banner ads, but running under the assumption that it is not a very successful marketing tactic. Yeah. It also seems to be the case that people aren't really willing to pay for news online. I mean, especially, again, when you have something like Reddit, where it's like, I'm going to go to the people who just want to produce news, who don't need the money from it, and I'm going to avoid paying, and I'm going to attempt to avoid being advertised to. When you have that in combination with the failure of these other forms of online advertising, it seems to lead to a place where we have, sponsored content, articles about news articles. Again, the quotes that the audience can't see, about, the best Tide detergent or something along those lines. So assuming that, generally as users of the internet, we aren't willing to pay for our news, and the advertising is largely ineffective, and it has led to this. What do you think is sort of the reconciling point? What is your Band-Aid solution? And I know that's sort of putting you on the spot, but what is your, what is the way to resolve that issue?
Well, sorry, what issue? Like, what do you mean? Like, what issue?
So the issue is that we don't have, we're not willing to pay for our news.
Right.
The advertising is ineffective for them. And so they're not getting those advertising dollars by putting a banner ad at the top, because the advertiser says, this isn't going to make us any money anyway. So the news company says to the advertiser that I will produce stories for you that seem like they're news, they're camouflaged as news, and they will promote your product through a news story. And obviously this is a very dangerous thing for us, because we want to read news, we don't want to think that we're being sort of psychologically taken advantage of.
So that almost goes back to the user-produced content.
In what way?
Well, if somebody was there at the event, it's better to have them live tweeting it than an actual reporter reporting it, that's not going to get put on the air.
So in that sense, then your solution as far as online news goes is to sort of say, well, let's cut out the news companies and let's sort of engage in
Yeah, but I also, sorry, just to jump in, I don't think that live, it's an interesting point you brought up, because I mean, live tweeting is great, or any sort of live, kind of advertising about the event is great, but the story that follows would have a lot more detail about the event. And if we were to kind of remove that element, I think we would be missing a lot of that kind of detail that we wouldn't be getting from the live tweeting.
It sounds to me like what you're really trying to sort of preserve is the professionalism.
Yeah.
See, and that's an issue too, though, because like way back in the day when newspapers were brand new, everybody had a newsletter.
Yeah.
Right. And then I know in Canada, we only have a handful of them that control everything, right? So if we get more to the user-created content, we might lose a little of that bit of that professionalism, but we're getting a more broad range.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I would definitely say, I don't know about you guys, but the direction that we're heading in media-wise has become, has totally shifted to a digitized, era where, smartphones and computers have been, the main source of, obtaining news.
Right.
So, I mean, live feeding and that type of deal has proved to be, more effective for a lot of people kind of tuning in or wanting to tune into the event, because it's a lot more instant. They even if they forgot about the event, or they want, kind of a sneak preview of what's going on, or if someone made, a mistake or something crazy happened, then they can like instantly get it rather than having to wait for the story, a day or two later,
right.
or the 2-hour update when it's over, when they could have tuned in during. So there's that kind of spontaneousness that you can get with, modern technology with smartphones and all that kind of stuff, which Dustin mentioned about the live tweeting, that you're not getting in the traditional era of, of paper or that kind of...
Well, just really that format of story that sort of originates with, that sort of telegraphic way of putting it, where you make the story in the least amount of words possible, right? Make it concise,
140 characters.
Make it, again, in quotes, objective,
Getting straight to the point. I mean,
just the facts.
In the Reddit code, I guess it would be TLDR, which would too long didn't read, because
right.
A lot of people, if we were to post that story of for example, like the whole Kanye West on jumping up on stage to interrupt Taylor Swift, like they're gonna read like the TLDR, just like Kanye being an idiot, he jumped up and interrupted her, rather than reading the whole kind of scenario of which that happened.
Right, right.
And having people live tweet about the event, like, oh my God, look what he just did. So. That kind of thing.
Yeah, but how many different scenarios are you going to get from everyone tweeting about that one thing?
That's a good point as well. I mean, you're also getting more, live tweeting also offers some different angles of the event, and people giving different opinions rather than one sole, kind of story, which is what you're getting from the traditional means.
I mean, it seems to me that generally speaking, if I'm following a news story, that I'm going to sort of follow it on, Twitter, I'm going to follow it maybe on Reddit, and then I'm going to wait for that sort of official news release from the major sources.
Okay, yeah.
Is that your experience of it as well?
I guess it would depend on different kinds of events and how close how closely how close to it I'd want to sit, because if it's something I could go for kind of a combo, because I could read the live tweeting about it, or I could read the live updates that others are offering, but then I could also read kind of the full scoop, the more professional scoop, the day after, so I could kind of have both of those angles, on a big event, whether it be the Grammys or a concert that someone's doing or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to sort of bring this a little bit, we've kind of gone off on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm going to sort of bring it back in line to talk about, our camouflaged content again. And just lastly, I want to sort of quickly talk about it from an ethical perspective. A lot of news companies tend to sort of make the excuse that if it is labeled as sponsored, which clearly sort of distinguishes it as advertising, that it's okay. As long as, there's that little thing at the top of the news articles that says, sponsored by McDonald's,
right, yep.
Then it's okay to have those stories in there. Do you agree with the news companies that would say that, or what's your perspective on that?
I don't know. What do you think, Dustin?
I don't know. I'm trying to.
I'm seeing
get
the
my
gears
head around it.
moving.
It's an interesting thing. Everyone needs to make money, right? Like, it makes the world go round. But I don't know if it's right or not. It's one of those things where it can go either way, right? Like, they need their money to pay everyone, so the public gets the news or what they deem as the news.
I think it's just also fair to say about the whole sponsoring question is that this is kind of a system that's been seen with more traditional companies. It's something that they've shown that works in the past years. But I think a lot of the times that I think there's going to be a very big transition to a much more what you said about kind of a live tweeting space rather than companies that might still be stuck in the past of getting these big stories out or relying on these sponsorships. Like, they might start reading the statistics and realizing like, maybe we should pick up on some of the the goals or strategies of these new age companies that are really finding new ways to grab viewers aside from the traditional route.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly weigh in with my thoughts, and I'll say that it seems to me that it's the case that regardless of whether it is specifically labeled as sponsored content, the aim of the content is still to trick you. And it's still to make you read an article
and it works.
of advertising that you formerly thought was news. And it does work, actually.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the whole idea, is that it works.
I find it works most for me on Instagram because for some reason just scrolling through and a video starts...
You're lost.
You're already watching it. You're already lost. So it seems to me it's a little too psychological.
I mean, and also it's just to kind of just throw in, it's just easy. It's simple. It's right there in front of you, and it's already played. They already got it playing for you. Like there's little to no effort. It's even less than clicking. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this is sort of a large topic. For us to talk about, and we really just barely scratched the surface on it. But hopefully we'll be able to continue the conversation at another time and talk a little bit more about sponsored content. But I think for now we're going to have to wrap it up. Do you guys have any final remarks?
No, I just want to say, thanks for listening, for all you guys out there listening, and tune in once again. 5:00 on Sundays, we're going to be here for sure.
Oh yeah, we'll be here.
And lots of great stuff to come. And yeah.
Next week, I believe we are talking about video game violence.
Oh, video game violence.
That'll
be a good one.
Yeah. So you can tune in for that.
Hopefully we can get some new faces in as well, try and mix up the roster here.
Yes.
And even though we got the strongest guys here. But,
of course.
Don't forget to our listeners that if you do want to get in contact with us, Facebook, Twitter,
and
email.
That's Trent Media Society. You can look us up there. You can like our page. You can, send us a message. Send us a message about sponsored content. You probably have some thoughts on that.
Even if you have any ideas for the show, just let us know.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, again, I'm Cole.
I'm Dustin.
And I'm Nathaniel.
And have a great night.
See you guys later.
Thank you.